This is the growth strategist, Eldana Ambler, and today I want to talk to you about how do you blast past a plateau that was created by fear. Now, you might not want to admit that it was from fear, but let me talk to you. Like if you've been reading my blog posts over the last several weeks, maybe you've been trying to figure out what's the cause behind the stubborn plateau your company's experiencing. And that's good because you don't want to skip that step. The cause of your plateau is going to determine the best kind of approach to blast past it. So my question today is, I want to know if you are dealing with things like being risk averse. I mean, it happens. There's been things happen over the last few years that have made business owners unsettled. The uncertainty all around us gives some of us cause for pause, as they say in South Philly. We're not able to risk as much. Maybe you're dealing with the fear of lost control. You've been the owner of the business, you've been in charge, and some of the growth strategies that are out there that would make you lift off of the plateau you're on make you feel like the quality's not going to be as good, or you're not going to have as much say or something. Or maybe you've been, and this is a hard one for people to admit, maybe you've been tolerating a significant problem in your business or a limitation of the business way too long. Happens in a lot of family businesses in particular, where there might be a sibling or another relative where you've kind of been expected to continue to pay them and continue to tolerate bad communication, not carrying their weight, that type of thing. All of those causes of plateaus are fear-based, and so I wanted to group them as a category because they have some shared elements. And I just want to ask you to think about yourself, and I'm talking to you as an owner of a business. So maybe, in your case, if you're an owner that's been feeling like that, maybe you've been burned and you're just more skeptical with the passage of time. That can happen. Maybe the memory of putting your house on the line back in the early days of the business is almost a little too vivid in your memory. Or maybe you've been living with the consequences of some problems, or maybe you've been living with the consequences of promises that you made a long, long time ago when your situation was a whole lot different than it is today. Or, you know what? This is what I'm seeing quite a bit. Maybe you haven't been able to save as much money for your retirement as you thought you would have by this point in your life. And you're just not in the position to take the kind of risks that you used to be able to do. That sound familiar? Now I'm going to talk about another group of people and see if it feels different to you, because this is what creates the plateau. Think about the younger, career-focused, future-focused, ambitious people on your team. They can get pretty disillusioned and be completely convinced that there isn't going to be any growth of the business or their career if they view you as a leader of the business that's leading the business based on fear. That's how they see it. You're not taking chances, you're hesitant, you don't want to let go, you don't like the loss of control, you're not willing to take chances. See, it may be logical to you, but they see it as a leaderless organization. And even if they can understand the explanations as to why you're holding back, it can make them make career decisions that have big implications to your plateau. I'll give you an example. Let's say those ambitious people who are looking at you and saying, they're never going to change, we're not going to grow here. Let's say they leave and they go to another company that is going to be growing and has ambition and is embracing change still. You end up with followers, old ideas, and a whole lot fewer succession options. That's not good. If they stay and they keep their ambitions and they continue to work for you, but you don't change, and you're still risk adverse, what's that mean? It increases your chances that you're paying to train them to become your competitors. Whoa. And probably the worst one. What if those formerly ambitious young people, and I'm tipping my hand by saying formerly, let's say they stay and they let their ambition and their desire to learn go. Then your productivity drops, and that plateau you've been worried about quickly becomes free fall. So it's really important to look at, if you're the leader, if you're basically the bottleneck and the cause of the plateau, it's not necessarily the market, it's not necessarily the economy, it's not necessarily lack of money out there. A lot of times it's about us. Okay, so if this is happening to you, what can you do? Breaking past a stubborn plateau that developed because of fear really calls for you to revisit the purpose of the company. Now, that's going to sound strange, because if you're fearful, you're really not going to want to talk about what's the purpose of the business, because it exposes so much, but that's exactly what's needed. And here's the hook. It also involves doing it in a way that, I'm going to call it respect, is expressed for everybody that's involved. You know, I've been struck by times when we've been brought into, help when there has been a stubborn plateau that's been caused by fear. And a couple things have been very important. We have to get our arms around, what is the source of the fear for the owner, yourself? How long would you want to continue to work? What was the purpose of the business? Get a sense of that. And you also have to get a sense of the employees. How much do they like the owner? How much do they like the industry and would want to stay in it? How much do they respect the accomplishments of the people who've been there? How much do they continue to want to work? And then you also have to look at the business and say, how resilient is this business regardless of who is the owner? Because sometimes it's been made over-dependent on a couple of key people. So you have to look at it as its own living, breathing being. And what's the growth potential for it? So, because all that stuff not only sets a sales price, but it also helps you fund succession from within. I want to share with you the feeling that I had a few years ago. I was so proud of a client, and I've seen it numerous times, but this particular one I'm thinking about. The majority shareholder was starting to shop around quietly on the side for potential buyers. At least he spoke up and he told the president, who in turn brought us in to help with strategic planning. And that was extremely important because the process looked at the long-term growth opportunities for the younger people while remembering, to honor and remembering to take care of the shorter-term responsibilities and obligations to the founder. It matters. They're due money. They needed, in their case, they needed to hire an assistant for the controller because they had a lot of numbers to crunch, and that way they could control the costs and really control the data. It didn't get out of their hands. Wonderfully, a handful of their brightest employees were able to buy the business from the founder. And he was able to continue to play in the business, and now it feels like play. He's in a slightly different role. He helps in going after big accounts, and so he's having a great time. And it's been beautiful to watch, the honoring of what's been before and the creation of something new. The younger new employees have embraced a new vision and a new mission and very ambitious goals. And despite all the uncertainty that's around them the whole time in this last few years, they're doing just fine. It is possible. So if you're facing a plateau that, when you're honest with yourself, has been created due to fear, revisit the purpose of the business, because maybe the purpose of the business had been an incorporated career for you and to pay you for what you like to do, rather than building the value of the company as its top priority. I'm just saying. And if you revisit the purpose of the business with respect expressed for everybody that's involved, some very exciting things can happen, including blasting past the stubborn plateau. This is the growth strategist, Donna Ambler.